Hey, what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and... Oh, man, I forgot. What part am I doing here? There's a whole bunch of different series I keep doing. I keep forgetting which one am I doing this time.
You are doing part 8 of What If Deku Had a Slime Quirk.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, voice in my head. You're very helpful.
You're welcome.
Yep, welcome to part 8 of What If Deku Had a Slime Quirk. Please, sit back and relax because you are in for a treat. With that out of the way, let's begin, shall we? The roar of the crowd lifted the spirits of the multitude of future heroes that stood together at the starting line. Energized from the commencement speech by faculty and fired up by the premature declaration of victory by Katsuki Bakugo, the students of the various UA courses stretched and prepared for the start of the first section of the festival, the obstacle course. At first, all remained silent, until the sounds of machinery began to permeate throughout the stadium. Midoriya stood in front of the crowd. His classmates scattered throughout, though Mineta made sure to stand fairly close to his friend and training partner. The two locked eyes and smirked devilish grins as they fist-bumped, ready to begin the race. Bakugo, on the other hand, had his arm in a type of brace. Even though it had been several weeks since the incident, his arm still suffered residual damage. He was cleared to compete, but only if he would wear this device to protect himself from further injury. The ill-tempered boy was not the only one participating at a disadvantage. Shoto Todoroki also was participating in the race, wearing special goggles that were tinted to allow him to see. The bichromatic teen's vision was still dampened from the USJ attack, though it had recovered to at least 60% health by the time of the sports festival. A tremendously loud bell rang throughout as massive mechanized titans began to rise from the ground approaching the teens. This loud sound signaled the beginning of the event, and the partially blinded boy reacted by sending a massive wall of ice towards the first large robot that reached their perimeter. The randomness of the wave of ice took apart the Titan, but also froze some students in the process. Following this move, Todoroki began sliding forward on instinct, narrowly avoiding debris as he moved forward. When the initial shock passed, Midoriya triggered his slime quirk and went into a semi-liquid form. Feeling the crowds of students moving forward, his mouth curled into a smile as he began sliding forward in what seemed like random directions. Though when the first wave of students came through, they immediately lost balance and slipped due to a large slime trail. The secondary wave of students then attempted to move forward, but became immobilized due to a minefield of sticky balls attaching themselves to the ground. Using the attached balls on the bottom of his sneakers, Mineta bounced high and above his fellow students and dashed forward. Following the purple boy's lead, a girl in pink jumped over the trapped teens and began sliding forward using her acid quirk for quick, slippery movements. "You snooze, you lose," taunted Mina as she made her way to progress in the race. The protests and frustrations from the students could be heard loudly as the crowd cheered on the ingenuity of the hero hopefuls. An incredible explosion then erupted as Bakugo went skyward, gripping his healthy arm beneath his legs like a makeshift rocket, using his injured arm to steady himself as the winds and propulsion threatened to send him into a tailspin. "Get out of my way, extras!" screamed the blonde, as his goal was clear, to finally defeat the slime teen. Bakugo's scarlet eyes aimed forward as he forced his palm to ignite over and over again, blasting him forward. Leading the pack was Todoroki, though his luck was soon about to run out. The intense glare of the sunlight reflecting off the frozen structures began to impair his already affected vision. Not noticing the metallic boot of a machine, the boy tripped, sending him crashing to the ground. "Damn it, not now," growled the boy, as he attempted to get to his feet, while the large claw of the 0-point robot came down on him about to catch its prey. Suddenly, a devastating impact compressed and demolished the machine, causing it to short-circuit and collapse. Upon focusing his vision, Todoroki managed to make out a floating uniform that he came to realize was Toru Hagakure coming to his rescue. "You okay, Todoroki? Close call you had there," said the girl, as she dusted her hands together and gestured a thumbs up towards her classmate, though a combination of weakened sight and invisible skin meant it was all for naught. Forcing himself to his feet, Todoroki dusted off his uniform and began running towards the next section of the obstacle course. "I didn't need your help." The arrogant voice of the boy brought a heavy sigh from the invisible girl, though the hairs on the back of her neck suddenly stood on end as she heard the swishing sound of slime pass by her. Looking forward, she could see a speeding slime boy close the distance between himself and the icy hot teen. Before she could follow their lead, Hagakure felt something hit her foot. Then, when glancing down, she noticed it was a sticky ball. Her eyes widened as she saw Mineta bouncing past her, winking in Hagakure's direction, causing her to retch in disgust. Noticing her predicament, she decided to trigger her ace in the hole, using One for All. Lightning rippled throughout her body, lighting up her silhouette with a fiery spark of the sun. But try as she might, the bond between her sneaker and the ground and the ball did not relent. While Hagakure continued to struggle to release herself, Mina Ashido passed by her with a joyful smile. Seeing her classmate's situation, she began to slide backwards to not stop her trajectory. "Take off the shoe!" recommended the antennaed girl as she spun back and continued on her merry way. Hagakure froze in place for a moment as the comment began to sink in. When Bakugo passed by her, the trapped teen frantically undid her shoelace and kicked off her second sneaker and once again triggered her quirk to imbue her with enhanced speed. In the second stage of the obstacle course, the students were met by a mountainous ravine with various stone structures connecting together through thin bridging. Arriving first, Todoroki stood over the ledge, his vision beginning to blur, as a slight feeling of dread came over him. Knowing the other competitors were soon approaching, he focused his ice power and created a massive wave of ice that made a sort of bridge to the other side of the field. Just when he began sliding forward, he noticed several imperfections with his construct due to his impairment. The ice was deformed and uneven, nearly causing him to slip off. Due to this exertion, a thin layer of frost was already forming on his right side, his breathing already becoming quite heavy. Reaching the second sector just a minute after the bichromatic teen, Midoriya jumped onto the ice and shifted into his mochi form and began sliding down the trail. While he sped through, he noticed Todoroki in the lead and began to laugh to himself as he suddenly passed right between the legs of the boy. The surprise of being overtaken caused the teen to lose his focus and stumble, losing his balance and beginning to spin out uncontrollably. "Sorry!" yelled the slime boy in the distance. All the while, Todoroki managed to grab onto the ledge of one of his structures and kept himself from falling into the abyss. The teen forced himself back onto the bridge and took a moment to breathe until he saw that a purple dot began approaching, along with explosions and a small crowd of students. "Damn it," grunted the broody teen, as he forced his legs to sprint forward before anyone could pass him once more. In the final zone of the obstacle course, Midori was met by a large sign that read, "Danger! Mines!" with a cartoonish pink skull in the center for decorative flair. "This is gonna be a problem," murmured the teen, as he began his careful trot through the minefield. Close behind was Todoroki, who immediately rushed past the nearly snail-paced greenette. Before Midoriya could warn the teen, a mine erupted from beneath their feet, sending Todoroki flying back and crashing towards the ground. The slime boy's eyes popped out in comedic fashion, shocked at the event, and began to jiggle from nervousness. After the explosion, Bakugo managed to catch up to the pack leaders and stopped short of entering the minefield. His brows were furrowed as a serious expression rested on his face. For the moment, personal rivalries did not matter. All that mattered was victory. Analyzing the minefield, he began slowly stepping through the area, carefully avoiding the explosives. Mineta finally managed to bounce into the scene, but just like Bakugo, he stopped dead in his tracks before entering the danger zone. "Minefield? Who decided this was a good idea?" shouted Mineta as he gripped the purple spheres on his head tightly in frustration. Hearing his friend's complaints, Midoriya turned around and began waving at the great boy. The dwarven teen gulped hard and carefully began following the slime trail left behind by the emerald-eyed boy. Hearing a commotion in the distance, the four teens could see dust being lifted as the invisible girl was dashing towards them, followed by Ashido, who was sliding forward using her acid. From behind the two, the remaining students ran at full speed, attempting to complete the race. This prompted the four 1A students to rush their pace, Bakugo panicking as he pointed his left arm behind him and set off an explosion that began triggering a chain reaction that caused multiple mines to go off simultaneously. Midoriya saw his old friend's intentions and immediately reacted by stretching his body and wrapping around the approaching Mineta. Covering him sort of like a dome, his slime turned green when the explosions were set off, and the elasticity of his shielding strengthened only slightly. When the initial shock passed, the slime quirk user jumped off his friend and slowly reformed his humanoid slime body. The short-statured boy's mouth was agape for a second, before shaking his head to focus on the task at hand. "Since when can you... Never mind, let's go," said Mineta as he began bouncing towards the finish line behind Bakugo. The still rather stunned Midoriya steadied himself as he began dashing towards the end, as some of the teens rushed through the minefield, seeing the end of the first event approaching. The first to finish the race was Bakugo, followed by Midoriya and Mineta, who crossed simultaneously. Todoroki, managing to compose himself, finished the race shortly after Mina and Hagakure arrived and completed the event. In the end, a total of 42 students made it to the second stage of the sports festival, including the entirety of Class 1A. All right, everyone, congratulations on getting this far. But now, it's time to see how well you can work as a team, announced the X-rated hero Midnight, as she posed with her whip snapping in the air loudly. The dwarven purple teen couldn't help but stare lasciviously towards the educator. Noticing this, Midoriya grinned and kicked the boy behind the knee lightly, causing him to lose balance and tumble. The tomfoolery by the two teens was met by intense glares and a rather loud shushing by their class representatives, which made the two focus on the announcements. The next event we call the Cavalry Battle, Midnight said, as she informed the students that they would be given headbands with scores based on their placing in the first event. There would be one unique score that was provided to the winner of the race, worth a total of 10 million points. Bakugo would be awarded this headband and had been made the main target for all the participants. You now have 15 minutes to make teams with no more than 4 members. Time starts now! The students began rapidly rushing through the arena, attempting to build their respective teams. The slime teen and pop-off user immediately decided to team up. The frog girl Suyu also approached them to join. Thinking carefully, the three began to huddle together to make a game plan, until the pink-haired Mina jumped in, asking to be the final member of their team. Sure. The more the merrier, said Midoriya, stammering from the sudden appearance. A strange nervousness overwhelmed the freckled youth. Now with a squad of 4, Team Midoriya had been fully formed and ready for the second stage. Across the field, the fiery blonde had his own team already secure. Uraraka, Kirishima, and Tokoyami, an intimidating squadron. All the while, Todoroki approached some of his available classmates and built a team consisting of Momo Yaoyorozu, Denki Kaminari, and Tenya Ida. His teammates did voice their concerns as the bichromatic teen insisted on being the one lifted up. Todoroki, with your condition, is it wise for you to take up this role? Questioned Yaoyorozu, her hands balled up into soft fists pressed against her chest. The girl's worried expression would be mirrored by the others, who lacked confidence in the partially blind youth's abilities. His performance in the first round, in addition to the doubt of his teammates, caused frustrations and anger to boil over within the boy, that came out in hateful glares that silenced the group. I'm fine. They need a handicap to even compete with us, growled Todoroki, in an uncharacteristically cocky tone, though this was all a guise to hide his insecurities, as he was truly doubting himself, but refused to appear the fool, especially with his father watching. Though still unconvinced, the teens relented and propped the icy hot teen above them. On Midoriya's team, Mineta was chosen to be the one elevated, due to him being vertically challenged. Though he was nervous, the encouragement from his tight-knit friends group helped him ease the nerves. Tightening his headband and gulping hard, Mineta looked on as he was being held above, ready for battle. All right, kiddos, time's up! Get to your starting positions! Announced Midnight as she snapped her whip in the air, which caused some of the boys in the competition and crowd to blush at the seductive instructor. Mineta especially let a small trail of drool slide off his chin and onto Midoriya's head. Sighing heavily, a tendril of slime came upwards and smacked the grape-headed boy in the back of the head, reclaiming his attention. Focus, Mineta! You can gawk later, shouted the slime teen, while giving a slight glare towards the perverted youth. Rubbing the back of his head to ease the sting, Mineta stuck his tongue out in retort. A loud horn echoed throughout the field as Midnight signaled the beginning of the cavalry battle. Immediately, the teams began converging on Team Bakugo, the 10 million headband the clear target. The ashen blonde sharpened his eyes as he quickly looked around and grinned sadistically. Come get it, you extras! Shouted the teen, as sweat began to collect in his left palm. His teammates looked up and nodded, seeing as a strategy had already been made. Uraraka took a deep breath as she triggered her quirk on the makeshift squad. As the grouping of teams approached, a large blast triggered from the pooled sweat, sending the quartet into a tailspin. From the spinning blur, the umbral claws of Dark Shadow emerged, knocking back many attackers and swiping away some of their headbands. Though the successful counterattack was short-lived, as the team suddenly dropped back to the ground with a large pool of vomit being rocketed to the ground by the Gravity Girl. "Damn lightweight!" barked Bakugo, annoyed at how quickly the quirk affected his classmate. Just then, a hand passed by, snatching the headband in that moment of weakness. Though, while this occurred, the scarlet-eyed boy couldn't help but look back at Tokiyami, who seemed to be struggling to control his quirk, it being frozen in place. "I'll be taking that," said the 1B student, Nato Monoma. A devious smile plastered on his face. Bakugo's eyes widened, as he could see an ebony figure jump out of Dark Shadow, joining the opposition. "Nice job, Kuro Ryu," complimented the boastful teen, as the figure revealed itself to be a member of Class 1B. The opposing force began to run back as they attempted to distance themselves from Team Bakugo. On the other side of the battlefield, Team Midoriya had decided to use their complementary abilities to facilitate movement. Mina began producing a slipstream of acid, as Midoriya had turned his entire body to slime and began using his semi-liquid form to drag the team throughout the arena. While the combatants attempted to snatch Minetta's headband, one by one they fell into their devious trap, grabbing a handful of sticky balls in the process, which rendered their palms fully occupied. Those caught in the sticky trap ended up getting their headbands yoinked off by the long, retractable tongue of the frog quirk user, their overall score increasing by the minute. The students left in the slime squad's dust ended up slipping in the viscous liquid that now had a visible trail left behind. From a distance, Mineta noticed the teams of Bakugo and Class 1B were in direct combat for the ownership of the top-ranked headband. Though it seemed that the Ashen Blonde was struggling due to only using one hand to fight back, it seemed that the talkative boy was using multiple quirks against the anger-prone teen. "Midoriya, look! It's that jerk from the cafeteria!" Hearing the comment from Mineta, the slime teen glanced over to see Monoma easily handling his childhood bully. His normal emerald eyes began to flash into a bloody scarlet, and his body began dragging the team towards the conflict. Due to the slippery ground, the others could do little to avoid the situation. They attempted to talk him down, the grape-haired boy digging his heels into Midoriya's shoulders to grab his attention. As they approached, Team Bakugo realized they were fighting a losing battle, and that if they continued, they might not pass this section at all. Due to his classmates convincing the Ashen Blonde, they rushed away to collect more headbands. Monoma began cackling as he and his team's strategy was executed perfectly, though the approaching slime team brought a larger Cheshire grin to his face. "Why, if it isn't the killer and his grunts?" The obnoxious words from the copy teen caused Midoriya to breathe heavily. All the while, his slime shifted to green. Tendrils of green slime began growing from the boy's body, which caused the Dwarven rider great distress. "Come on, try it, villain boy. Everyone's watching," Monoma taunted, while his team began getting uncomfortable at the exchange. Once again, Monoma had gone much too far. As they approached and the violent intentions of the slime youth became obvious, a voice of reason whispered in his ear, "Slime boy, chill out. You're too cute to be a villain." The words from Mina caused Midoriya to stop in his tracks, his body suddenly jiggling as his eyes shifted back to green, and his complexion changed to a bright red. The word cute shocked the boy to attention, the violent tendencies forcefully suppressed. "Seems that worked. Now let's get their headbands." Mina smiled brightly as her black scleras locked onto Team Monoma before launching an acidic slipstream in front of them to speed the team up. Midoriya, still trying to compose himself, began stuttering as his feet turned to slime once more to help the movement. The team rapidly approached the copy teen and his teammates, suddenly drifting towards the team and surrounding them in a circle of slippery slime. Mina then launched an acid spray which was blocked by an invisible air shield, though from the side, a glob of green slime was also spat in their direction. The slime projectile was once again blocked by another air shield, which seemed to come from the rider. Though, before Team 1B could get comfortable, Midoriya's team began to close the distance. His entire body became slime, and two tendrils shot from his chest as the cyan slime arms reached towards the cocky blonde. "Too easy," touted Monoma as he reached out and grabbed the tendrils, his eyes turning green momentarily. Though, once he did, he noticed the faces of his opponents all changed into that of shit-eating grins. Monoma looked down at his palms as his entire body began to dissolve, his face drooping as his body turned to cyan slime. The shift in body composition caused him to melt right through his clothing and over his teammates that immediately began freaking out at the transformation and the cold semi-liquid that covered them. The cyan tendrils coming from Midoriya pulled back, having the 10 million headband in his grasp. Jumping back, Mineta and Mina stuck their tongue out at the opposition, while Monoma began to gurgle loudly from his puddle. After just a second, the quirk replication displaced and his body reconstituted, while his face showed frustration and anger. "That is cheating! How dare you! I knew you were a villain!" Monoma began screaming loudly, catching the attention of the crowd that suddenly grew quiet. A cool breeze passed between his legs, which caused goosebumps to emerge from the boy's skin. He glanced downwards and noticed he was naked. He screeched loudly in embarrassment as the crowd began to roar with laughter, which echoed throughout the arena. My, it seems we have a streaker on our hands," said Midnight through the speakers, which caused the already embarrassed boy to turn red, while his team surrounded him to allow the privacy for him to get his uniform back on. Elsewhere, Team Todoroki managed to remain steady, taking advantage of the wide range of the bichromatic team's ice quirk. They managed to freeze much of the opposition in place. Knowing their score was not increasing fast enough, Todoroki came to the realization they needed to go for the top prize if they were going to win. "Ida, we need speed," Todoroki said, which got the attention of the speedster, who grabbed hold of his teammates and began focusing on his engines. Suddenly, a blue flame began shooting from his calves, and his Recipro burst roared to life, blasting them forward towards the competition. The 1A students blasted through the field, attempting to grab the headband that had recently been appropriated by the slime teen. Todoroki's hands were spread out as he grabbed headband after headband from many students, though many got slaps instead during the motion. At breakneck speeds, they reached the slime teen, but thanks in part to the short stature of Mineta and the poor eyesight of the bichromatic teen, which caused Todoroki to miss by several inches. Just then the time had expired, and a loud horn blasted through the arena, bringing the teams to a halt. Team Todoroki skid to a stop as a light smoke lifted from the calves of the class representative. The icy hot boy gripped the acquired headbands tightly, frustration seeping through him. His goal was absolute dominance, and once again, his plan had failed. Todoroki, Enough! Todoroki interrupted Yaoyorozu as he jumped off of his elevated position, throwing the headbands towards his teammates. The boy stomped away, grinding his teeth together, as anger flowed through him, his fists so tight that his knuckles turned white. Yaoyorozu looked on, watching her clearly disturbed classmate leave them be. The announcements for the next round were yet to be spoken. "Todoroki," mumbled the ebony-haired girl, her hands tight against her chest in concern. Midnight announced the cavalry battle had concluded through the speaker system. The points would then be tallied, and the top 4 teams would proceed to the next round. After a few minutes, it had been announced that the winners of the second round were the team of Midoriya, Mineta, Mina, and Tsuyu. The quartet celebrated loudly, until they were promptly told to control themselves as the cameras were still rolling. For the next hour or so, recreational games were performed for the entertainment of the masses, allowing the contestants time to rest their bodies for the upcoming struggle. Time had finally come for the final event of the sports festival, the fighting tournament. Midoriya and Mineta stood alongside their fellow UA classmates as they waited anxiously to know who they were up against. As Midnight gestured towards the large display showing the brackets for the tournament, the color of Mineta's face washed out and he became pale as paper. The combatants had been decided, and the first round was shocking to say the least. The brackets were as followed: Ochaka Uaraka versus Tsuyu Asui, Fumikage Tokoyami versus Momo Yaoyorozu, Hitoshi Shinzo versus Tenya Ida, Eijiro Kirishima versus Tetsu Tetsu, Denki Kaminari versus Ibara Shiozaki, Mina Ashido versus Toru Hagakure, Izuku Midoriya versus Shoto Todoroki, and the final fight of the first round, Katsuki Bakugo versus Minoru Mineta. The teens in attendance were obviously anxious for the upcoming fights, but no one held the pressure more than Mineta, who felt as if he was about to urinate himself. Glancing over, he could see Bakugo glaring daggers at him, whose red eyes struck fear into Minetta's very soul. And that's our video for today, so thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
I sure enjoyed it. I think Minetta's gonna get his butt kicked in the next part.
Oh, voice in my head. Don't count your chickens just yet. I mean, sure, he probably will lose, but hey, we'll find out. We don't know yet. Anyway, before I go, there's a little bit of housekeeping I want to do. First, We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description, so please feel free to check out all the other incredible content our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details are also in the description, so give them some love. That's all for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have an amazing day. And as always, hang on a second. Hey, voice in my head, do you want to do the outro?
Sure. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been a voice in Tim's head. His mustache is out.